for that industry.
Oh yeah,
You have to do
yeah,
that.
it's expensive. Yeah.
But even going to dinner has changed. We went to this really nice restaurant and they had so much food and we had to leave in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like we want to enjoy it.
So I'll give you a tip.
We left and then they kicked us out, like God, and the food was still on the table. We were still having dessert.
So the tip is if you book in the late sitting, then they
Square this up for us, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
We're tipping.
Because then there's no one
And
else
we
coming
paid
in
so
after
much
you.
money, but it was just so delicious. But
Yeah. Yeah, you feel rushed.
yeah, you don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I hate that when you feel rushed.
Alright. Let's settle in, settle down, and let's get ready. Okay, so just taking a moment as we settle in, everyone. We'll lie down and, or lie or sit, it doesn't matter. We're going to start with a little bit of pranayama right at the beginning of class here. Now the breath is nice and slow and steady. It comes in and out through the nose as we start off here. Taking a moment to use the breath to start to slow down things like the heartbeat, just to start to bring about a sense of calmness to the body as well. And to help us arrive at our mat, breath comes in through the nose and out through the nose. Just noticing the breath filling the lungs from the very base, or what we know as the lower lobes of the lungs, all the way up to the very top. So we're trying to breathe up into the collarbones. So it's as though we're breathing into the belly and up into the collarbones. Full breath in. Full breath going out. We want to notice also that the breath isn't rushed. We take our time to slowly, to smoothly, to steadily draw the breath in. The inhale should bring about a rise into the chest and belly. And the exhale is that sort of deflation or the shrinking in of the chest and the sort of dropping down or drawing back in of the belly. And we begin to notice how the breath comes very naturally. One after the other. You also begin to notice that your inhalation and your exhalation are equal in length. They're exactly the same length here. And that's what also assists in that nice sort of fluidity to the breathing. And then keeping the breath rhythm that you've found. And gently you just invite a little bit of movement back into maybe the hands and the feet, just to awaken us and to bring our awareness back to the room. And then just allow the eyes to softly open for me here. I'm going to keep, if you're not lying, I might keep you lying, because we're going to start off class with some of our own practice, and we're going to take 4 poses that we're going to just do on our own, and they're something that you might feel that your body needs this morning. So you might feel like, oh wow, my back's really tight. I need to do a little stretch that's going to release my back, or my legs are super, super tight this morning, or my back's feeling really rigid. What would I need to do? So I will keep time. We're going to do, so we'll do 4 poses, and we're going to take a minute for each of the poses. So it might be that you want to twist, or you want to go into flexion, or you want to do a little knee float, or whatever. I'm going to give us our own personal time. Okay, so this is about you listening to your body and just checking in and going, okay, well, how do I feel right now? What does my body say to me I would really like to do to bring me some comfort? Because this morning's class is called Soulful Saturday, and it's all about nourishing ourselves and nourishing our own bodies. So keeping that intention, let's find 4 poses that we feel might be kindly accepted to the body. And it doesn't have to be lying, but we'll start our first one lying, whatever it might be. So it might be banana rama, it might be knees to chest, might be knee floats, might be glutes, might be really tight, so you might want to do figure 4, ankle at knee. But let me keep time for you, and I'll let you know when to move on to your next one. Or if you're doing one side, it might be time to it's time to change to the other side. That's our first one. We have another 3 to choose. So as we choose our pose, just keep that awareness of the breath, that it's a nice slow, rhythmical, quality breath, not holding the breath, or the breath sort of drops back into that sort of shallow, short, shallow breathing. So that's our second one, 2 out of our 4. find our last one. And that's our last pose from here. We're going to start in a child's pose as our first pose. So that'll bring us up into sitting. If you have a bolster, or you had, say, a blanket, or you had some kind of structure that you can use between your knees, so some people might have another what do you call it, another mat. But sometimes it's nice to have like some comfort, because we're talking, and these first sort of few poses are just some nice ways to nurture and to keep the body comfortable. But this can be a nice way to feel a softness to child's pose. But even if you had, like, say, a blanket, you could put, say, the blanket even underneath, say, the head, so your head doesn't have to go down so far. So you can put your head onto the blanket, and then that just softens the lower of the head. Or you could do it as your head to the side. It's easier with a slight elevation than it is straight down towards the floor. And if we've got our head rotated, just lift the head and turn it the other way. If not, if you've got just your forehead onto the floor, then that's okay, you can stay where you are. Just if we've got a rotated head, you're going to want to make sure we even up the amount of twist that the neck does. So your child's pose could be wide leg, it doesn't have to be knees together. You can have nice big knees separated and just letting the belly fall between the legs. And then what we'll do is, if you've got the head rotated, we'll bring us all back to forehead onto the mat, so that or bolster, so that we can glide our way back up from here. Keep whatever structure that you've got, be it blanket or bolster, and bring it so that it's across your mat. And we're going to see if we can raise the arms up a little bit higher. So if you've got elevated arms, or if you had, say, a set of blocks, you can do exactly the same thing. It could just be on could be just 2 blocks. But the elevation of the arms means that we have to drop a little bit more down through the arms and down towards the mat here. So it opens up through the shoulders a little bit more. And it can be, it doesn't even have to be a huge amount of height, it can be a small amount of elevation, but just that little bit of extra height opens up the under part of the arm and then starts to prepare the arms, the shoulders for, so things like when you go to warrior and the arms are high, or any of the big open arm movements, triangle, side angle pose, the arms are open, and so it's nice to prep these shoulders. And keep the long arms for me, walk them around towards the right hand side. So
if you've got your blocks, you need to take them with you, then start to move them out to the right, or if you've got your bolster, you can probably negotiate all the way off to the right-hand side of the bolster. But we're still sitting down into the heels. The idea of this walking the hands around to the right-hand side is to open up the left side of it. So you might feel a little bit more of a stretch that runs from, say, your left armpit all the way down through the left side of your rib cage. And as we keep anchoring ourselves back into this left heel, and that's what continues to create this open chain down the left side. Walk the hands slowly back through to the center and find your walk to the other side, to the left hand side, so that we can open up obviously the right side. Walk the left, or right hand I should say, a little bit further if you can on that same diagonal line, just to increase the length down the right side, and re-glue that right heel and bottom towards one another again. Start to see how you really open up through the right side ribs into those the intercostal muscles. Back onto the inhale back to the center, and then walk the hands slowly back in so that we get to lift the trunk up. Come onto all fours, onto the hands and the knees. Yeah. And the hands are going to sit underneath the shoulders initially. Don't worry that eventually you might find that we move away from that stacking action. So we're going to imagine that the hips can draw like a figure 8. So it might mean that we push forward over the wrists. But imagine what a number 8 looks like and see if you can draw it into that hip structure. It'll mean that we will move back towards the heels and then forwards towards the hands. But what we're creating here is this hip mobility. Stop wherever you are and see if you can reverse that number 8. You're going to go the other way. It doesn't feel too natural. Before we get to park ourselves back into like a tabletop kind of position. Now, if it's comfortable to lie down onto your belly, I would get you to lie down onto your tummies. If not, you can do this in a kneeling position. So we're going to do windscreen wiper legs. But again, up to you. You'll decide what feels comfy. If we are prone, we call this prone, lying down, face down, you might even let your head come rest onto your hands. I'd go wide knees for windscreen wipers, just because it gives, again, that nice movement into the hip and the pelvis. And you're literally just floating the legs left to right here. So this is really quite nourishing on the sacrum, the lowest of our back, the little fused bones in the spine, the lumbar. And then we're going to let these little windscreen wipers stop and bring the feet together. And then see if we can let gravity sort of weight them towards the floor here. So now this starts to prep and prime up the hip joint a little bit more. So it's like a butterfly kind of pose, or or frog. But again, we're not pulling them down, we're just sort of letting gravity sort of weight them down. And then let the heels draw back up from here. Walk the knees or slide the knees back in. Let the left leg go long and bring your right heel into your bottom and take your right hand and see if you can pull your heel towards your bottom on this one. Keep the hips pointing down to the floor, particularly the right hip, the leg you're holding onto. So keep imagining that that hip bone can press quite deeply into the floor as you squeeze the heel closer in towards the bottom. This should address that front part of the leg with the quadricep here. And then make that guy go and switch it off to the other side. Once again, the front of the thigh, or particularly the hip bone, we want to try and be conscious of not rolling off the left hip. Keeping the hip pressing down into the floor. Leave the left heel in, and if you can find the right as well, maybe you can pull both heels to the bottom. You don't have to. Okay, if you want to go back to the first one, or you want to go back just to windscreen wiper legs, that's okay too. So both heels pulling in towards the bottom, both legs being together if we can, so keeping the two thighs together. Releasing the legs slowly back down towards the mat. Bring your hands to the sides of your chest and prepare to come up onto hands and knees. We're going to continue to unravel and find ourselves then into down facing dog. Now we're going to get to the backs of the legs. So we stretch the quads, and now we're going to unfold and stretch the calves and the hamstrings. So we have the hands shoulder width apart, we have the fingers spread. We want to imagine that we can stretch or push the mat away from us, and as we push forward with those hands, you'll feel yourself sink back into your hips a little more. So you really get that sensation of calves being sort of addressed here, and then the idea of sending your sit bones up towards the ceiling starts to bring a little bit more elongation to those hamstrings as well. Leave the left leg straight, just bend your right knee from here, coming up onto the tippy toes on your right foot. Drop your left heel a little bit deeper down into the floor. So we should feel slightly more stretch into that calf. Good. Release the right heel down, and then draw the left heel up, pressing the balls of the feet to the floor, isolating the right calf. Both heels equally weight down to the floor. Send your right leg straight back behind you. Close your heel into your bottom and open your right hip around towards the ceiling. So a little bit more of a hip opener. And then unfold, if you can, that right leg. Kick it out. Don't worry if you can't. Just keep your heel to your bum. Close your heel in and turn your hip back down to the floor, and then we'll switch it. We'll do the same on the left. Left rises. Left heel pops into your bum. Then you turn your left hip around towards the ceiling, and maybe you get to unfold that left leg up to you. Good. Close the left heel back down towards the bottom. Bring your left knee to your chest. Step forward to the front part of your mat. You're going to know this is like a little low lunge. Get ready to drop your right knee and your right shin down to the floor, and then you get to go into that crescent pose. As we press the right shin down into the floor, and the front of that right foot, that anchors the leg down into the
mat, you start to pull the right hip towards the front edge of your mat. This will give us a little bit more hip flexor stretch. And then just pull back a little, and then press forward a little, and then just rock back and forward. And we're just easing our way into it a little bit deeper. Good. Let's take one last one before we rest a little further into it. Think of the left knee now gliding a little more forward, almost like it's trying to come over your toes. And then press that right shin back down into the floor, and the right hip pulls forward too. Bring the left elbow onto the left thigh as you raise the right arm. I'm going to lean over to the left on this one, so a nice little tilt. Keep the left tilt, bring the right elbow and hook it over the knee. And the hands will come into prayer and take yourself into a little bit of a deeper twist if you can. Breathe out, return the hands back to the mat. Step back into down dog. Come to plank as you breathe in. Just soften the knees down to the floor so it becomes a knee plank. And let's just drop the chin to the floor and push straight back up from this little tricep work here before you then find your way back into that down dog pose. Just a little sequence in between us, heading over to the other side. The right leg will lead behind us. We'll bring it into the chest. We'll step through. Once we're there, down goes the left knee and the left shin. And we'll start to prepare and open up that left hip. And then a little rock back before we start to address the front of the hip a bit more. Open it up, bend up. Need to play around with it a little bit. This helps to release the fascia. Perfect. Let's stay and deepen this one by pressing the left shin down into the mat, pulling the left hip forward, like you're trying to drag your shin along the mat here. Good. Keep reaching the right knee forward too. Trying to really get that deepening hip flex stretch here. As we come up, the right elbow comes and rests onto the right thigh, and the left arm will rise. We tip out to the right on this one. Out to the right hand side. Jump that left elbow over the knee. Right hand comes with us as we twist into that prayer position. Breathe in, return the hands to meet our mat, toes under our back. And we'll find that down dog once again. See if you can give you that same little vinyasa, the plank, the knees, a little push up here. Inhale, plank, knees. Returning back into down dog as we use that last little bit. The left leg leads us back behind you. Inhale. Close the heel into the bottom, open the hip. Good. Extend the leg if you feel comfortable with it. Bring the heel back to your bottom, swing the hip back around, bring your knee to your belly, look forward, step forward. From here, we're going to come up to stand, bring your right leg there to join in. And as we inhale, rise. Grab hold of the tips of the elbows, and as we exhale, fold forward. Soften the knees from here, just so that you don't jam up the lower back. We're going to pull down on the tips of the elbows. And we use that to try and pull our trunk deeper down towards the floor here. Think like you did in down dog. Can you sort of ground your heels down into the mat, but send your sit bones up towards the ceiling. And we let the head go. Okay, let the head just soften the mat.
breathe in, bring the hands to meet the mat, step the left leg back to your dog pose again. One plank on the inhale. Good. Knees, this time fully lower. Go right down. And then a little cobra at the end of it, so that little curly back. You look down towards the floor, the back goes into that slide extension. Breathe out, push up and press back. Revisit your down dog with your right leg leaning behind this time. And again, if you want to do the heel bottom and the hip open, you can. Otherwise, you can just stay in down dog. It's up to you. You can unfold the leg or you can keep the heel closed in. Heel to bottom, hip rotates back down. Get ready to step forward again. And if the leg doesn't come in one movement, give it a little jostle, swing it around, grab it on the ankle and bring it to. It's okay to help it out. The left leg comes together, we rise again nice and slow, so drive through those feet, up go those arms, collect the elbows. And then exhale when you're ready, slowly hinge at the hips and fall down. This time we're going to take a little bit of a twist with it, so like you're rotating the hips, rotate around left to right. It's like a little swing. Side to side. Good. Then you're ready to let the head rest into the center. Take a breath in. Reach the hands back down. Well, this time it's got to be the right leg that steps us back. Just so that we even it out the amount of work that the legs do. And they bring us back onto the mat. We've got another plank on the inhale. Then we'll go knees. Chin will go down. Curl up into cobra on the inhale. And return back into down dog now and breath out. The left leg finds its way out back again. Go around. Three-legged down dog. So this time as we breathe out, bring the left knee in towards the chest. Step forward, but walk the foot across the mat. So there's this little waddle over towards the right edge of the mat. And then we're going to lay this shin down towards the floor, so you'll bend your back knee to get it to the floor. And it's going to take us into what we know as pigeon pose. The leg might want to slide, so it might want to slip down here near this right thigh. So what we try and do is make sure that the shin's parallel to the front edge of the mat. And if that means us having to stay upright, that's fine. If you want to go deeper into it, then you might come forward. But we want to make sure that this right hip points down towards the floor and that we don't sit on that left bottom cheek. So we could support that left hip if we needed to. So if I had like a block or I had a little blanket that I might want to prop up there, that's fine. It's really about releasing through this left hip. So you're going to probably feel it in through the bum and the side of the leg. So the lower we go, the tougher it is. But to be, I wouldn't want to lose my sort of the authenticity of the pose just to come down. Because the hip opens because of the positioning that we put this leg in, this left shin. Back right leg, the long leg, let's walk it across to the left a few steps, if you can. Now that's going to tweak the left hip. It's going to want to twist it all out of alignment. So we know we've got to keep rotating this little right hip to point down to the floor to really keep opening up the glute. This is quite a deep stretch into the deeper layers of the bottom muscle. So I'm going to what we call the piriformis muscle. It's big, it's not big, it's a little stabilizing muscle, but plays a very big role in keeping the hips really stable. And it's the notorious muscle that wants to grip on the sciatic nerve. So when we get sciatica, it's usually because this muscle is holding on tight and gripping or strangulating really the sciatic nerve, and then we get sciatic pain. Walk that right leg back in line with your hip. If you can, bend the right leg. As we come up, if you're not upright, see if you can come up and grab the right foot. So we're going to go right heel to bottom.
we release the right leg, and we literally roll now onto that left bottom cheek. Now this is called deer pose. It's basically half pigeon. Left shin's parallel to the front of the mat, and this thigh, my back right thigh, is parallel to the front edge of the mat. So that pretty much what we're looking at here is like little 90-degree angles behind the backs of the knees. Then we square up. So we're going to be tempted to hang out here on this angle towards the right. See if we can rotate the chest around and now come down. So this is a little easier perhaps than the full pigeon in terms of being able to come closer down to the floor and being able to keep this shin parallel to the front of the mat. Take the hands, so we can keep this left knee pulling down to the floor, but rotate around towards the right a little more. So just, you can sort of navigate the arms or the hands around. And still keep letting the sort of weightedness of this left knee anchored down towards the floor. The hands in and let the chest come and lift up. Now we're going to end up spinning around to the other side of our mat. So you'll lift the knees up and then you want to just keep spinning and spinning, and all you're doing is you're just rotating, and you're going to find yourself facing the other part of your mat, the back of your mat now. Same pose. Shins parallel, back thighs parallel. Now it's about that right knee trying to stay down towards the floor, shoulders square up, lean forward, little half pigeon. We let that right knee weight down towards the floor. Our hands will walk towards the left this time, but without letting that right knee flip up. So it's not going to be this massive movement, but we've just taken our shoulders to point more towards the left corner of our mat as opposed to the big square with our mat. Walk back to centre, and then this left leg is going to find its way out the back into full pigeon. It'll take us a little deeper, a little stronger into your pigeon pose. Again, check out what's going to happen to that right leg if it wants to slip and slide down towards your left. You can hold it with your left hand, you can sort of glue it in place. Again, if it needs a little bit of propping up, it might be a towel or your blanket. Just so that we don't lose the integrity of the pose. So pose requires us to try and keep our hips quite square with the front edge of the mat. Take the left leg and walk it across to the right, a fraction. Again, you'll notice this is not a massive movement. The leg doesn't fall off the mat here. It just takes a little micro movement. It wants to, so what that does is it tries to open up this left hip. So we've got to keep pointing it down, keep closing the left hip down to the floor. So let's realign it with the hip, bending the left leg. And bring the left hand around to find that left foot and draw the heels to the bottom. You could modify this one by losing that that hip and bringing your bum onto the floor. Usually that way we can find heel and bottom. It's also probably nicer for some people if they find that their knees are digging into the mat too much. It needs to be a little quad stretch. Breathing out, we release the foot and we get to step back. Yeah, into down dog. Maybe we take a walk
of these little legs. The heels go up and down. I'm going to pump up and down a bit more, just to feel that sort of flow of blood here. Equally weight the two heels down towards the floor. Come back and bring the left leg to rise behind you. Close the heel into the bottom and open up the hip. Breathe out, close the hip, bring the knee to the chest, step forward to the front part of the mat. Press through the left foot and drive on up. It's going to send us up into a lunge, warrior one. Try and keep those hips nicely sunk so that your hip and your knee are close to being in alignment as opposed to the hips up too high. Sit into it a bit more, get those legs on. And then run the left arm around the right, so give them a little twist. And if you can go a second one, find that second little wrap of the arm. Bring your elbows up, shoulder height. These are eagle arms. And we separate the shoulder blades, we pull the back muscles apart. So you really feel this openness into the back. Tip back if you can, watch your balance. So if you extend back, just watch, you don't lose. Good, and then breathe out, gradually come back, release the fingertips down to the floor. Walk around to the right, spin it around, so you're now facing this long edge of your mat. And you're probably going to find that your feet need to just have a little check-in and see that the toes are on the same kind of line here. You can always widen this stance. It's up to you. You feel like, yep, I can't get my hands to the floor. Okay, so then the best way to do that is to go wider with your legs. Hands will meet the mat, or they can definitely sit on blocks. Let your head go. I know it's tempting to have to look at the edge of your mat, but see if you can go and tilt your head so you can look at the back edge of your mat so that the crown of the head points down towards the floor more. Turn the hands away from you so that they point towards the back edge of your mat. And see if you can maybe walk the hands a little bit further underneath you, and we get to tuckle in and under. So what it does is it sends the sit bones a little higher up into the air. We ground the heels a little further down into the mat, and we get more into the backs of those legs. Come back, walk the hands to the front part of the mat. And then spin on the right foot so that it points to the front edge of your mat. And come back into down dog from here. So it's brought you back to the front part of your mat again. And let's transition in between. We'll go plank, knees, plank lower, cobra. And let's keep the height in the cobra, but bring the hands out in front a little bit more. And I usually bring them wide. Okay, so they're wider than my shoulders, they're off the mat. And then I call them mangrove mountains. They're like little teepees that you press through the pads of the fingers, and maybe you can go and take that cobra a little higher. It's not to jam into your lower back at all, it's to try and take us a little further into this back extension. And your head is always looking, or your gaze is always looking down. Okay, because you always want the back of your neck to feel like it's long, as opposed to throwing your head back and looking forward and then crushing all the vertebrae in the back. Now, ease the chest down, bring the hands back by the side of your ribs. Good, push up, press back, and find down dog. Right leg leads you, back behind. Heel to bottom, open the hip. Look underneath the right arm here. Breathe out, close the hip, step forward to your right leg. It comes into your lunge warrior one. So again, help it along if it doesn't want to come into that first sort of shuffle through. As we rise, we're back into lunge warrior one, but we're on the other leg now. So the upper leg should also mean the other arm. Right arm crosses in front of the left, and it goes again, double twists, and the elbows wriggle up, same height as the shoulders, widen the back, separating the shoulder blades. And we have that option of tipping back. Again, only if you feel comfortable. And sometimes you feel a little more stable on one side than the other, so fingertips to the floor. Let's walk around towards that long edge of the mat, again the same edge that we were on before. So we're back facing this long side of the mat. Leave the left hand onto the floor or on a block, but open the right arm upwards towards the ceiling. You can look at it if you want to, you don't have to. You can still stay looking at your left hand, the one that's there, still planted firmly down into the mat. Good, and then breathe out. Right hand will go down onto the mat, and then you'll open up the other side. So the left arm opens up, and you twist and you rotate. Then breathe out, right hand returns back. Sorry, left hand returns back to the floor. We walk our hands around to the left hand side, so towards the left leg. Now you can either grab hold of the leg if you want to, or you can just bring your fingertips towards the floor. If you hold on to the leg, you might be able to use that just as a little bit of leverage to sort of pull your chest closer towards this left thigh. So you'll notice that as we've headed around to the left, the emphasis has gone over onto that leg. Okay, so not as much stretch on the right leg, but as we sort of draw deeper or closer to the left leg, you'll definitely feel it's sort of opening up the back of that left hamstring. Walk back to the centre, and what we should notice is as we go to the right that we've then equaled up the two sides. Grab hold of the right leg if you want to. Again, pull and draw or tuck on in. Bringing the hands back onto the mat. Spin that right foot back over there onto the mat. Good. Step back into the down dog. Realign the feet with the hips. Spread those fingers. Press the mat away from you. And come back into a plank pose or a knee pose. Let the left foot lift off the floor. So if you're on your knees, you just want to lift your left knee off the floor. And bring the left knee towards your left elbow. And send the left leg back. Take your right leg off the floor. And bring your right knee around towards your right elbow. And put them back. Take the left leg off the floor. Same knee, same elbow. The left to left. And step back. Right to right. And step it back. Good. Now, left foot steps out to the left. Or if you're on your knees, you can step it out. You can still keep one knee on the floor. And bring it back in. And then right out to the right hand side. And step the leg back together. Revisit down dog. And come up onto the balls of the feet. Right up high. And then spin on the toes and point them to the left edge of your mat. And then drop your feet. And then spin on your toes and point them to the right edge of your mat. Perfect. And back up onto the balls of the feet. Left leg leads back behind, knee to chest when you're ready. Look at the hands. Big step forward for me here. Good. Leave that guy there. Bring your right leg in to join it. And we're in this little low squat known as easy chair. Drop the hips and raise the chest. Hands meet here at that heart center. Press your hands together and let your elbows sit the same height as your wrists. Okay, that way you get a little bit of work and effort into the arms. Release the hands around behind your bottom. Interlock the fingers and pull the hands down past the bottom and find the chest opening and expanding just a little bit more here. Breathe out, straighten the legs and flip these same arms over the back. Over behind the head. Bend the knees and come back into easy chair. High arms, they swing out and up and into the ears. Breathe out, hands come to the heart center again. But this time we're going to raise up onto the tiptoes. And keep the left heel up, but drop the right heel down. So just like we did in that very first stretch of our down dog. Then bring the right leg up and lower the left heel down. Left heel up, right heel down. Right heel up, left heel down. Good. Both heels up, stay up high. Good. Breathe out, both heels down. Good. Back to hands interlocked behind the bottom. Finish by opening up the chest, lift the sternum. Good. Breathe out, straighten the legs, flip right up. You can breathe in, bring the hands back down to the floor, bend the knees. And then come and step each knee back onto your mat so it takes you into tabletop from here. Come up to cat, exhale. And then cow pose as you inhale. Good. Curl up cat. And inhale cow. One more. As we return back to that neutral or flat back, wind your way back to the heels. And then inhale, slide the hands in, bring the chest to lift up. Take a quick lie around onto your back. Just spin the legs around and we'll find our way softly coming down into the mat. Widen knees now, like your wide-legged child's was. Knees not wide, just hook your elbows around the knees here. Maybe a little rock, maybe side to side. And then letting the legs just rest here into the centre. Right leg will go long. And the left leg will go into happy baby. So grab hold of either the ankle or the foot. And his left thigh is running down the left side of the ribs. And the left leg unfolds. We'll bring the right in. And then we'll let the left go long. Just take your time as you release that left leg. It's sort of been closed down that joint, so just a little bit of a flash of blood comes down into the hip now. Slide the left foot in along the mat just so that the leg is bent and the right leg releases. Let the knees open out into that butterfly pose or lying butterfly pose. If you feel that the knees need any sort of propping or support, you could either put some blocks underneath the knees or you could even start to thread, say something like you bolster through or rolled up towel for the knees just to be into this sort of supported position. It just stops, like it can stop any sort of load in the groin if you feel like it's pulling into the groin. The closer the knees are together, the easier it is. And then if this feels comfortable, you can stay here for your Shavasana, your relax, or you could go back and close your knees together and run your legs long. And it feels comfortable. Starting again to notice a very gentle, slow rhythm coming back into the breath. Length returns back to each breath. So we move away from any short, shallow breathing. You start to notice the chest expanding on the inhale. Bow your eyes in. And being just as mindful on the exhale, you're emptying the breath fully, ensuring that there's this emptiness to the lungs in anticipation for the next breath in. And it's with the sound of the meditation bowl that we get to slowly bring and draw our awareness back. Perhaps again inviting that small movement into the feet and hands. And then finding a side that feels most comfortable for you to roll over and just to rest on. Up into sitting, just slowly make your way up, sitting into the hands and coming into seated pose, that little cross-legged, if that feels comfortable, or any sitting pose, so that we can bring the palms of the hands just to meet at the heart center. This is where we get to close our practice and honour the practice and give thanks by finishing with namaste. 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 We brought the sun out with us.
Yeah, it stopped.
Yeah, the rain stopped. So we went from
Torrential rain.
oh man, I don't know, you couldn't even hear me over the rain. Thanks everyone.